All right, guys. Our next guest always smells lovely because he is the face of Ralph Lauren's Polo Blue. He is the UFC's answer to James Bond, also former UFC middleweight champion and Strikeforce champion. Now set to take on Chris Weidman in a rematch at UFC 230 on November 3rd. It's going to be 4th here in Australia. Luke Rockhold, welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you today, man?
Doing well, boys. How's everything?
Very good, especially now that Luke Rockhold is on the program. Things are cooking. So the last time we spoke to you, Luke, you were targeting light heavyweight for your next fight, but you didn't rule out a return to 185. So tell us, how did this fight sort of come together? How did they lure you back into middleweight?
Chris Weidman at Madison Square Garden. Simple enough. It's a big fight in a big arena. Place I've always wanted to go, and perfect matchup, man. It's a very fitting situation. It's something that gets me up, gets me excited, makes me want to come back and drop that weight, I guess. There's a lot of there's a hold up in the division. Obviously I'm very close to DC, and I know his standing and where he's going and what's going on right now. So there's a lot of things that need to be cleared up before I make that move and run upon the light heavyweights.
What is it about Weidman specifically that gets you excited? Because I get the vibe that you mentioned before, this is a fight that gets you up, but you've already beaten him. So what is it that makes you excited about facing Weidman and beating him again?
It's Weidman at Madison Square Garden. He's a credible fighter, man. He put away Kelvin Gastelum. People want to discredit Weidman for what he's had a couple rough fights since we encountered. But he showed up. His last fight, you're only as good as your last fight, they say, right? He showed up. He put Kelvin Gastelum away like nobody else could. So he's very relevant in the division. He is number 3 in the world, and putting him away again. Obviously, it speaks volumes. I think I can do it better than these guys.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I guess if you do get a massive win over him at Madison Square Garden, that kind of sets up another title shot possibly for Luke Rockhold over the winner of Robert Whittaker and Kelvin Gastelum. So if you do get the win over Weidman, would you be willing to stick around and get another title shot at middleweight, or is this just sort of one and done for you?
I never close the door. I always keep an open door. So we'll see. I'm going to go perform. I'm going to go handle my business, Madison Square Garden, and then we'll make decisions then. But there's a lot to be figured out with the title picture. We'll see where the guys go. Obviously, they still have to fight. They have to schedule to fight, and Robert's got to get healthy. And that thing's got to take place, and we'll see who comes to surface.
The tasty thing about this whole situation is UFC 230. It's kind of a showcase for the middleweight division. It was supposed to be Paulo Costa and Romero. That doesn't seem like it's happening. But you have yourself and Weidman. You also have Derek Brunson and Israel Adesanya. What do you think about sort of the middleweight division being on showcase? And has Israel sort of caught your eye at all? He's a guy that's being pushed very heavily by the UFC and a guy that's also sort of climbing the ranks.
Seemed to do pretty well for himself. I think this is a good test for him. It's a guy that can wrestle a little bit, and we'll see what Israel's all-around game comes to be. He does well on his feet, but this is a complicated world when you reach the top.
Talk a little bit about Madison Square Garden to us. What does that place mean to you? I mean, me and Casper were lucky enough. We were up there for the Conor McGregor, Eddie Alvarez fight, but obviously all the classic events that have taken place. When I walked in there personally, I felt a vibe from the walls. It was like walking into some kind of church for sports fans, church for people like us on the other side of the world. Whenever we talk about it, it's held in very high regard. What does it mean to you? And what do you think of when you think of it?
It got me back down to 185 pounds. I'll say that. Not a lot of things would have brought me back here at the moment, but I'm excited. Madison Square Garden is the biggest venue in the world. So I got MGM down. It's the probably 2 biggest venues in the world, right? I won the world title against Weidman at the MGM. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to put him away here at Madison Square Garden. It's gonna be an epic fight. It's gonna be The show's awesome. You got the West Coast boys coming over, and we're gonna handle business.
I seem to remember you saying coast-to-coast ass whoopings at one point, I think referring to Weidman. So it's interesting that it's sort of, it's coming to fruition. You have that opportunity. When you think about that first fight between you guys, what's sort of the biggest thing that you remember about it? What's something that stands out to you about it?
Myself on top of him in the third round, dropping elbows on his face.
Yeah.
That stands out the most, really. So I mean, I was seeking this fight. I thought that we could make this thing happen. We were trying to get the Madison Square Garden fight originally, and then post our first fight. So it's a fitting situation. It's time to do to end this thing. We were supposed to have that rematch after the first fight. He didn't. He thought certain ways about it, and it's time to silence everybody. It's not that there was nothing else happening but me dominating that fight, and I'm gonna go out there and prove that the spinning heel kick, whatever the fuck you guys want to talk about, it doesn't fucking matter. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna put an end to this thing. I'm gonna put a stamp on it.
Because you tweeted out, you sort of retweeted it saying there won't be a third one. That's why, right? You want to end. You don't want it to get to a trilogy. It's going to end here, correct?
I don't want it to. Who the fuck would want to go to the trilogy? What's the point of that? No,
Yeah.
I'm coming. I'm coming to win the fucking fight. I'm coming to put him away. I'm coming to just leave no doubt. People keep doubting me. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna show myself. Every fight's different. There's complications in fights. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna prove myself as the top middleweight in the world.
And obviously, it's a little bit of time since 2014 when you guys last fought. What do you sort of think about yourself compared to the Luke Rockhold back then? I know you've got a lot of new tricks. You've worked a lot of new moves. You've worked with a bunch of different camps. How do you sort of compare yourself to the Luke Rockhold back then?
You'll have to wait and see. There's definitely there's always new tricks. There's always new things. And, last time around with the Weidman fight, I was at a deficit. I wasn't nearly who I could be, and I've learned how to pace myself through training camps and get to the fight healthier, get to the fight more prepared, more composed, and this game is a constant learning process, and that's why you travel, you train, and you you don't limit yourself. That's the reason I move around. It's loyalty is everything to me. But martial arts is the way of martial arts is always to learn, adapt, and to seek new information, and that's what I do. I've always been loyal to my people. They're always in my corner. You always see that. But I'm always out there to learn and pull in as much information as possible. And out here with Henry and the team that have, and Greg and Jones and Kami Bronzini, the guys are very knowledgeable in the fight game, and I'm pulling every bit of information I can in this career.
So just to confirm, because I was going to say, like, on your Instagram, there's a lot of pictures of you and Javier Mendez, a lot of sort of throwbacks. But you will still be with Combat Club for this one, correct? You're not going back to AKA officially or anything like that.
I'm never opposed to training with my guys, and that's what I did. It's not throwbacks. These aren't throwbacks. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing in life. And so I went back and I trained with Khabib and DC and the guys for a bit. It's good to be back and see everybody. And I'll be back. I got to fly back this week for some things, and so I'm going to get some more training in. But I'll be back here. For the most part, I'm here. Everything's good here. I got a great system with Mike Barwas and strength and conditioning. I'm getting my body healthy, and everything's on track. And so I'm just trying to build a better machine, do what I do.
Just quickly, before we touch on Khabib, because obviously we'll ask you about him as well, but just regarding Weidman, what do you think is the biggest difference between him these days and the Weidman that you already beat back in 2014? How much of a different fighter do you think he is?
I'd have to say Weidman showed me his best fight. His last time out, he adapted. He was composed. He showed different things. It was his best fight I've seen, realistically.
Against Gastelum, right?
he rocked Gastelum probably 2 or 3 times. He had him on Queer Street. He had the kid like I've never seen. No one else has done that to him. So he dominated him. He adjusted, but I'm not Kelvin Gastelum. This is going to be different, and he'll soon remember, why he doesn't want to fucking tangle with me.
Let's talk a little bit about your AKA brother Khabib, because they did the big press conference between him and Conor McGregor this past week. Did you get a chance to watch it, and what did you think of all the craziness?
I watched a bit of it on the on my drive to practice. It is what it is. I think there's obviously somewhat of a communication barrier, but Khabib gets his point across. He's composed. You can see his demeanor. I don't know where he's at. Connor's Conor. he's selling it, man. He's on the brink of insanity, and it's awesome. But this is a different kind of fight, and we'll see what's up, man. They're both dangerous in their own realms, but I like Khabib and where he's coming from and how he can attack this fight. So I'm excited to see it.
It's funny. I was watching the press conference, thinking like, I'm sure Khabib doesn't love this moment, sort of having to, engage, English being his second language. But regardless, it's gonna the work that Conor's doing now. It's gonna make them both a lot of money. How do you think, sort of, him better than we do or anyone does? How do you think he took some of those things that Conor said? Mentioning Kadyrov and his people, and Conor sort of really doing his research. How do you think he sort of wore all those things, and did it affect him in any way?
Khabib's a pretty smooth character. He doesn't really let a lot affect him. I think you all can see that. Conor always does his homework. He always does his shit, and he's always going to be himself. So, but the fight's the fight. The man can fight. He can not only talk, he does fight, and he is precise. He is dangerous, and we all know Khabib can do his thing. He's 26-0 now. I mean, it's an unheard of thing. The guy's never lost. So. Conor's lost multiple times. Khabib is dangerous. Anybody can lose, but we'll see what happens. If Khabib gets a hold of him, it's a different world. You can't tussle with somebody who's grappled like that his whole life. I've grappled with a lot of 55-pounders in the world, and not one can give me the go that Khabib has.
Sorry to cut in there. What kind of weight does he feel like to you? Because you've guys like Josh Thompson, other lightweights. If they feel like lightweights, what does Khabib feel like? Does he feel close to a middleweight to you?
Khabib is he's up there, man. He obviously doesn't have the exact size of me as a bigger middleweight, but he's strong as an ox. He doesn't give up. The kid, he's relentless and he won't give up. I mean, I play with 55-pounders. Khabib is a real go, and there's absolutely no quitting him. He will go to the bitter end. He will go to his death. He has to. I've taken him as far as I could ever believe, and he just keeps coming. And the guy does not. He will not tap to anything. He's a true fighter.
Jesus, he's a bit of a Terminator there. I know you mentioned that next week he said you're gonna go somewhere, so you won't be at UFC 229, because I know you were there when obviously Daniel Cormier had that massive win, and you were there in the octagon. Will you be there for Khabib's fight with McGregor, or are you obviously preparing for your big fight at MSG and won't be able to make it this time around?
I am preparing for the fight, but we have some complications, so we'll see. I don't know. I might be out there training. I'm trying to decipher what the best training situation is for me right now. So
yeah, because we'll be there, so a good training session could be having a few beers with the boys from Australia and talking about some old war stories off record, So I'm just saying, if you want to get really ready for Chris Weidman, you might have to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll drink some whiskey, right?
Of course.
Rob out there with you boys. Nah.
I think
I might have to play it safe out here in Florida. So I'm gonna go to Cali. I'm gonna get a couple days of training with AK and Khabib this weekend. But it looks like I'm gonna come back here.
Well, I wanted to ask you also, we'll let you go in a moment, but you talking about Kelvin Gastelum before, who do you think wins between him and Robert Whittaker? How do you see that fight potentially playing out? Because that is potentially the guy that you might be facing next, whoever wins.
It's an interesting matchup. Whittaker can't. Kelvin's quick, and so it's going to be a striking match. They're both pretty good on the feet. When Kelvin breaks mentally, if you pressure him, you put it on him, and so Whittaker. I don't know, man. It's going to be a good fight. We'll see. I favor Whittaker, but Kelvin is dangerous on the feet if you play that game with him all the time. So we'll see if Whittaker can expand his game and try to implement some takedowns and different things to throw him off. Whittaker's got a kicking game too, so anything can land.
Well, finally, the most important prediction of all. What's your prediction for November 3rd? How are you beating Chris Weidman at UFC 230?
Round
2.
two.
So half the time as last time, correct?
Should have been done in round 3 last time.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's true. So round 2 for this one. There you go, guys. Luke Rockhold versus Chris Weidman. A very enticing rematch, UFC 230 on November the 3rd, because the time difference is going to be November 4th here in Australia and New Zealand, but it will be at the iconic Madison Square Garden. Follow the man on Twitter and Instagram at Luke Rockhold. And of course, if you want to smell delicious, check out the Ralph Lauren Polo Blue range. Probably wearing some of it right now. Just quickly, anything new and exciting coming out in the world of Ralph Lauren for you, Luke?
I think I've covered the map so far. I have it all.
Everything.
I have fragrance, underwear, and shirt. So Ralph Lauren at the moment, but we got good things. I'm always working. I got a lot of stuff on in the works, but most importantly, we're putting away Chris Weidman, Madison Square Garden. That's all it is. All it is.
There you go. Thank you so much, Luke, for your time. Always appreciate it, and thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much, Luke.
Later, boys.